What's up YouTube? Welcome back to another tutorial with Frawgsy. This one's going to be a full cartoon portrait. A lot of people have been asking me about this because this is the original style I started my page with, so most people know me for this kind of style. The reason I've been moving away from it is because it takes a little bit longer, and with the new algorithm I'm trying to post more, so having something that takes this long doesn't really match up to needing to post more. But I still like to do it now and then because it looks really clean. You can do this on any photo, but I like to do it with just kind of close-up portrait shots. So we're going to be doing Playboi Carti on this video, but you can work with any photo. And before we get going, I just want to say thank you for watching. Hit the like button if you like it or find it helpful. Leave a comment as you're going. If you have any questions, I'll be answering them all. DM me on Instagram. I always love to help, so feel free to reach out. And if you follow it and are happy with what you come out with, or you draw the drip eyes on other things, please tag me or tag Frawgsy Fan Art or Frog Army. I see all of them, and I love seeing your guys' take on my own style. I'll share them to my story so we all just get more traffic and more people seeing our artwork on Instagram. So thanks again for tuning in, and if you want more info about my merch, just go to my Instagram page. I'll probably be releasing it. I'm trying to do it when I hit 10K followers, but it might be a little sooner than that, but we'll see. It depends if I can hold out long enough, because I'm really excited to get this out to you guys, and it's been a long time coming. Alright, so anyway, you open up Illustrator. I usually work with 16 by 16 inch artboards. This will be exported at the end as a PNG file at 300 dpi. So it'll be a rather large file, but I just want the highest quality possible. So we'll open that up. During the tutorial, I'm gonna try to tell you guys most of the information for each step at the start, and then just kind of finish out that section. So say line work, I'll tell you all the info, do the line work, and then so hopefully I could speed it up while I'm doing the line work so it's not as long as the last video. As I go, if I find helpful tips throughout, I'll slow it down and tell you guys, obviously, because there are a lot of things that kind of can speed up your process or make your life easier in one way or another. So one of the main navigation tools with your artboard is if you hold space, you'll see this grabber hand, and this allows you to move the artboard around. And then if you hold Option on a Mac and Alt on a Windows machine, you can zoom in and out. So if you're seeing me move around the artboard, those are the commands I'm using. You can also, to zoom in and out, you can hit Z for the magnifying glass, click and drag. But I just find the Alt key is way quicker, so I always have my keyboard over here. I'll move the screen down. I guess you can't see it, but alright, anyway, so you get your artboard set up, and then we're going to drag in our image. Just drag and drop. I'm going to align it to the left-hand side. And when you increase the size, you want to hold Shift so it maintains the same scale ratio, and it doesn't stretch the image or distort it in any way. And I'm just trying to get it about 16 inches. And then I always like to just hit Shift O to change the artboard size, and we come in just like 1 or 2 pixels, because sometimes it'll create like a stray white line, and I really get upset when that happens and I didn't realize before I posted it. So I always make sure now that I come in the image a little bit, and that'll be crisp edges. And so that's set. So we're going to be drawing on top of this, so this will be the background layer. So we want to have it lower the opacity to around 70% so we can see our black lines on top of it, but we still see the shape and form that we need to go off of. And then we'll lock this layer, create a new layer, and now we're ready for the line work.
The truth is that I love somebody.
And so with this, it's important to have a pressure sensitive drawing tablet. I'm using a Huion Canvas Pro 13. I can put the link in the description below. It's a very good starting tablet, and it has this pen that's pressure sensitive, so when you press harder, the line will be thicker and press lighter, the line will be thinner. So I'll set up my own brush. In this menu at the top, you might need to hit B to open your brush, and then you'll get this menu, but I'll use a calligraphic brush, whatever it's called, and then we'll do the size at like 2-point, hit pressure, and that's only available if you have a pressure sensitive drawing tablet. Make sure your drawing tablet program is open before you open Illustrator or whatever program you're working on, so it can register, otherwise it might not show up. Which is actually just what happened to me, so even I make that mistake and I just clipped it out. So variation, this will tell you how thick or thin it can get, and I usually just keep it at 2 points so it's not too crazy and it's still controllable. Play around with it. Some people like thicker lines. I'm starting to like thinner lines, but so now we can test it. Yeah, zoom in a bit. You'll notice when you go thin, it's thin, and then you press thicker, and so it gives this really nice shape. You want to try to start your lines thin and end your lines thin like that. It'll just give a nice feel to it all, makes it look a little more realistic. Let's see, so we're just going to trace the main shapes with it, and then the hair I usually just outline with the pencil tool, which is N. So like just for this example, you just kind of do a really rough sketch, and then you'll close the shape, and you want to fill it with just black. I just use black, and then sometimes I'll put highlights on top of it. Now it came up as a stroke, so to switch it from a stroke over here to a fill, you just hit Shift X, and it'll switch the two colors. And then if you want, so sometimes they'll have a smoothing tool, so even if you go really zigzaggy like that, it smooths it out a bit. I guess it's more noticeable on small details like right here. So to change this, you just double click this. This is the same for the brush tool also, and so it opens this menu. You can make it smoother or more accurate. For the hair, I usually go to like a little more accurate, and other things I keep it smooth. So with the brush, I leave it at the same. So I'm just gonna go ahead and finish the tracing. I know there'll be like one part with the eye drifts that I'll probably slow down the video for, but other than that, I'll just speed this process up, and I will get back when I'm finished. And I guess it doesn't really matter where you start. I always start at different places, so just start somewhere. When you're drawing lines like this, it'll come up with all these anchor points to move them. So you'll be in the brush tool to move them. You use the A, or the direct select tool. So you press A and you click the line, and you'll get all these anchor points. This is one of the benefits of using Illustrator, because then you can change the line, make it exactly how you want. So I do this on almost all of my lines. Unless you're trying to get a more natural feel, then kind of just leave it as is, but I like to just take a little extra time and make it alright. And honestly, lips are pretty hard, so I usually wait till the end, but let's just get them out of the way first. That actually looks pretty good. So we'll go down here. Now, since you just fill all of the hair with solid black, I can just leave this line here. It doesn't really matter where it ends up in this black area, because it's all going to be filled black anyway. So I kind of draw till there and then end. And also when you're drawing these, people want to look better when they are drawn as cartoons, so this is your time to like kind of fix things or like enhance some things. So like with guys, it's make their jawline like really square. With girls, kind of make it a little thinner. I mean, not too exaggerated, just like a little bit. His is already like pretty solid, so you don't really need to do much. It's just little details. This will come into play with shading too. You just want like really solid facial features. But make sure you always save your file while you're working. You don't want to lose all your progress. There might be a power outage, the program might crash, so always hit Control S and save your progress. And then you won't have to restart, which is always a good thing. So with hair, a lot of people get, in my opinion, way too detailed with it. I just use solid black fill because I'm just uploading this to Instagram. Even when I print it out on posters, I like this better because as vector art, I don't think it's supposed to look like too fine detail, like with crazy hair, like every single strand in there. Just draw a black shape. If you post to Instagram, it's gonna lower the quality anyway, so you'll kind of lose all that hard work and time that you put into it. In my opinion, it's just not necessary, and it looks good enough like that once you finish it all. One thing I like to do is make it just as clean as possible. If you're already doing this, you're investing time into it, so you might as well take that little extra time to fix your lines. Like you'll notice here I didn't quite get to the mark. You want to close all your shapes, make sure the lines end on other lines. If you overshoot a line like this, just bring it back a little. All those little, I call them mistakes, but it's gonna happen when you're drawing. Just the more you have, the dirtier it looks, so just clean it up. It adds for a really nice finish. And honestly, people aren't going to see the original image, so you don't need to follow it exactly. Like if I put a line here, no one's going to know that it's not exactly on the real line. So like with here, I kind of guessed at where it would be. Just use your intuition. Like you've worn clothing before and you've seen people's faces, so kind of draw. If you're having trouble, just kind of draw what you know. The more you do, the more natural it'll become. And also you'll add little flares eventually, and you'll have your own style with like stuff you add, or kind of like how you draw certain features. So just keep drawing. Draw as much as possible. Your style will emerge. I'm realizing this line should actually probably go further, so you're going to select this endpoint. Make sure only the endpoint is red. That shows you that it's selected. Go back to your brush and you can just continue that line. And I think it goes down. One important thing, like with this, if I start here, you'll notice that it's hard. It's kind of hard to get your line to like not have this tapering effect at the start, because it's like when you first press down, it'll be lighter. So for this, you don't want to have that effect. So what I do is you just overshoot it. So you'll start up here and then beyond it. So we'll just draw a line. That's pretty good. And then you use C, hit the C key, and that opens your scissor tool. And now this lets you cut lines. So if you see this red line, you'll be cutting this one, and you just click and it snipped the line in two, and now it ends on a nice solid ending instead of that tapering effect. Oops. And so that's a really helpful trick. I use that all the time. And so we're getting there. So with my style, my main thing is the eye drip. So this is probably like the most consistent thing between all of my drawings. I always start the upper eyelid and then do the eyelashes, then the drip. Since I've done so many, I have a very specific look I want to have the drip be. So it kind of takes way longer than it needs to a lot of times because I can just fidget with the anchor points to get it perfect, but a lot of times I honestly just bring in an old drawing and trace it, so then the drips are pretty consistent throughout, but depending on the angle of the face you'll have to change the shape of the drip, but so yeah. Now with the drip, it's important, since it's not a solid, it's like a liquid substance, you're going to want it to follow gravity. So a lot of times people draw, like if their head is sideways, people will still draw the drip like just going straight down the face, whereas it really should be falling down to the ground. So to help me with this, I always use guidelines. Even if you think you know what down is, like when you're drawing on a face or your drawing tablet might be angled. Sorry, I didn't even know it was out of the picture. That's pretty good. Okay, so your drawing tablet might be tilted or something, so just open up your ruler tool. You'll see these rulers over here. You can hit Command R, Control R. These can also be set in View, Guides. I actually don't know where it is specifically, but just hit Command R. It's somewhere in the rulers right here. So we'll show or hide rulers. You're going to show them. You just click and drag from the ruler, put it somewhere near the side, and now you got a nice vertical line to help guide you. And then with the drip, you're going to want to start, you see this like triangle here that's like covers the eyeball a little. You're going to want to like come out from there. And it comes out over the bottom eyelid, so like the main starting shape is out. We're gonna come in and then like two drip shapes like that. So just try to think of the shape of the face while you're going, because it's dripping down a face, so you need to have that shape built into the drip. And honestly, that's good enough. Now, I'm gonna mess around with it to get it the shape I like. It's best to just get a shape on the page, and then you can always adjust the anchor points. Since I've done it so many times, this is probably the easiest way for me to remain consistent. So I'll get back to you once I finish setting this up. So that's pretty good. You just want to have a nice, so the important things I'm looking for is first that it kind of looks realistic, like it's some slime coming out of the eyes, not just like falling straight flat. Like it needs to follow the shape of the face, so it'll come out. And as I said, you have these two like bulbs at the bottom. That's because just as the liquid runs down, it's going to collect mostly at the bottom as it's falling down, so it should be thicker down here and thinner right here. So yeah, and then for this part, for this little triangle part, I use the pencil tool. You just fill it in black. This helps to give like a hollow effect, like if the eyeball isn't there. Sometimes just makes the drip look like it's coming out of an opening rather than just like pasted on top of the face. And then I want to draw a line for the lower eyelid. Overshoot this line, and then I add another line that's just like gives more of like a zombie look or tired. Like I feel like this style really fits with like dead zombie vibe, so kind of just make their eye droopy, and then use the scissor tool to cut it, and that's pretty much it for this one. Maybe I'll add one more line to show this, the shape of this eyelid. Yeah, it's looking pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect, but really it doesn't need to be. So I'm just gonna leave it. Maybe I'll tuck that in just a little bit more. Alright, and then for the eyebrow, I just use the pencil tool, and then I add a couple little hairs with the brush. And right now we can get rid of this guide, so view, guides, clear guides. And honestly, like this eye, it's pretty difficult angle, especially with the nose blocking it, so it's always harder to draw the drips on it. But you gotta remember, like, as people look at the photo, just think about the main focal points. It's gonna be this eye, and since there's this piece of hair that's coming down anyway, it's gonna block it, so just don't get too stuck on it. Like, just keep moving. It does not have to be perfect. So one little tip is, like, when I'm tracing the hair, I just draw the main shape, and then you'll notice there's some areas that should not be included with the hair. So we're gonna knock those out of this main shape. So you just draw the main shape, and then you're gonna trace around these, kind of exaggerate them so it looks a little better. And now this piece is technically on top of the larger hair piece. So you select both and use the Pathfinder tool, and you are going to use minus front, and so this subtracts whatever shape is in front of the other object. And so now it combines it into one shape, and if we switch it back to fill, it has that folder. And so I'll just go around and do that to each one of these shapes. If it disappears like that, it just means that there's an overlapping piece that I don't know, it's kind of annoying. It just means you need to hit back, Control Undo, and then you're going to need to delete whatever piece is causing that disruption. So I can't really see it, so I'm going to use Object Hide to hide this line. And now you can see right here that there's a little additional piece right here we needed to subtract. So Now we can show that other line. Now it should work. Unless there's another one. Sometimes there are multiple, and so yep, it worked. You can always check. Alright, and so that completes the line work section. The cleaner the line work, usually the easier it is for coloring, so probably just spend a little extra time. Make sure this is nice and clean. It'll help with all the other parts. Tattoos and stuff I do later on, because I'll show you later, it's going to be a different type. You don't want to use solid black on a tattoo. I mean, it doesn't look awful, but you just want as realistic as possible. So I'm going to go fill up my coffee and stuff, and I'll be right back for the coloring part. Alright, so we are ready to color. This is a great time. This is like kind of really the best way to set your style on your page. You kind of want to have the same shading style throughout, same basic color palette. You don't want to just be changing it all the time. So to help create this, just use similar colors. Eventually, if you do enough, you'll learn how you like to shade certain parts. So as you'll see, I use a lot of like, I don't know, pointy shapes, but not too small in detail, just like nice big pointed shapes. You'll see it when I'm coloring. So this next step is crucial. Just to start, you want to make sure all of your line art is closed. So like, because you're going to be filling in each shape, so like the whole face will be one shape, and if there was an opening like this, then the shape will bleed into the hoodie and you will need to change that color manually. So it's just easiest to make sure before you start that all your shapes are closed. If you have an opening like that, then it won't leave the fill in the shape and you'll delete all the color. So it'll make more sense with what I'm doing in a second. But so right now you have a bunch of strokes. You can tell it's strokes because the anchor points are inside the line and you have this red line inside. So what you're going to need to do, we're going to select all of this, and we need these strokes to be shapes in order to do the next step. So you go select them all, hit object, expand appearance, and this expands the strokes into fills, and now you can see the anchor points are on the outside of the object because now it's a solid fill. You can see over here on the color picker over here, it's in a fill instead of the stroke, and so that's an important step. And then, so since I was talking about having the same color palette, I actually have my own swatch set that I generally use for probably like 90% of my vector art drawings. So we do, and it's going to be these colors down here. So I recommend doing this. Honestly, I didn't create this palette swatch set until this morning, but I used to just use old drawings, paste them in, and kind of use the eye picker or the eyedrop tool to just select colors. But this is nice because then you just have a small little box on your screen instead of a whole nother drawing. So I always start with the main base skin color, and you just drag it over the artboard, and then that'll be this color. And then, even before you do that, so now we got the shapes expanded. You're gonna need another copy on top of all of this. That's just so when you're coloring in, you want your line art to be on top and remain nice and crisp. So what you're gonna do now that it's expanded, you select the layer and just duplicate that layer. And so now you'll see there's a copy on top. Just lock it and you won't need to touch it anymore. So now we do the skin color on the on layer number 2, the original like line art layer. Select the skin color, and now you can see that the top layer is still above it, which is important. But you'll notice on this little picture over here that the color box is on top of our black lines, and we want to send this to the back. So to do this, you can do arrange, send to back, or a keyboard shortcut is Command Shift open bracket. And so now you can see that the line art's on top, the color's on the bottom, and then you select all or Control A, and you hit the Pathfinder divide tool. And so what this is, at any intersection, it's going to split into a separate shape. And so this is how you can change the colors. So like this outside shape is not, you can delete it. And when you hit the divide tool, it's going to group all of these objects. So when you want to select a color, you're going to need to use the direct select tool, which is the A key. See, I don't like this little pointy spot, but I am not sure what's causing it. So I'll just cover it when I'm shading, so whatever. So we'll just go around and delete these areas. For jewelry, I don't like to use a pure white fill because then you don't have any room for a highlight. So just start with like a slightly darker color. So you always want to leave like at least some room to make it lighter for highlights. Like this shade, like you don't see it from far away, but if you want to get posters printed, this could look like a mistake. So you want to just fill it black. It doesn't make a difference when you post to Instagram, but like I said, if you're gonna print it at a large scale, that stuff will show up. The frawgsy eye color. Now let's see. The color for this is the hex color is right here. So I use the same color on almost all of my drawings. If I'm using this green color, it's always the same. And I have lip color saved. Again, like, it's your cartoon. You get to choose the colors. It doesn't have to be true to the picture, just somewhat believable. And so let's just make this a little darker. Alright, so we're in pretty good shape right now. So now we start the shading part, which you're gonna make a new layer and lock the base colors. You're gonna always, well, I usually hide it and just use this, the main background photo, to give you some help with the highlights and shadows, like where they fall. I mean, a lot of people think it's cheating and whatever, but honestly, if it can help you, why not use it? Like, there's no, like, you shouldn't feel bad if you're drawing on top of a photo. Like, don't let people talk down or like make you feel less about your work. Like, you're still creating, you're still going to be doing artistic decisions and like shapes, so I think it still counts just as much. But a lot of people get upset or like butthurt that you're drawing like just tracing, but there's a lot more to it, so don't feel bad. So I always start with the top. The top layer is going to be the darkest shadows, and then under that we're going to build the lighter shadows and then the highlights. So this is just in terms of workflow, it's easier because then you can just draw right around or like right behind these dark shadows, which will make sense in the next step. But you just identify for this one the darkest shadows, like here, usually under the nose is a good one, around the eyes. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I usually do the clothes separately, but I might do it on this one too. And so I noticed that it's like it's not as smooth as I'd like because I forgot to change the smoothness setting on here. For this, I actually kind of like it a little bit smoother. So let's go ahead and rebuild that shape. And even just from that single shadow, you can see it brings a lot more, like, makes the photo a lot more dynamic. It gives a little bit of depth, like, it allows because all you're doing is making, it's like optical illusions for the eyes. You're just making color shapes to trick the eyes into thinking it's semi 3D. So yeah, that looks good. And I'll just keep going. If I have anything I need to stop and say, I'll slow it down. One thing I do, like, I don't even know when I started doing it or why. Well, I know why, but so I do this like little hook over the nose like this. And it doesn't even necessarily like match the photo. Like there's clearly not a shadow there, but I've found that it actually helps to just give a little bit more shape to the nose. And just like another little thing, like you do little things like this to help create your style. Like, I don't even know. I think I like how it looks. So just play around, like have fun, whatever you think looks good, try it out. You can always do more drawings, or you can always hit backspace or undo. I mean, so just experiment. Like, never get too comfortable. There's so much to learn. So I forgot to mention, if in terms of anchor points, sometimes you get too many. That accuracy setting, the smoothness setting I was working on, will determine how many it puts down and how much time. So the smoother it is, the fewer anchor points, the more accurate it is, the more anchor points. So if you want to get a smooth line, it's better to just delete some anchor points. So to do this, just hit the minus key. You get the little pen with the minus sign. To add anchor points, you'll hit the plus key, and you can see how it changes, and then you can just click. It took me I don't even know when I learned that, but it helps speed up the process a lot. It helps get your lines smooth, so very handy tip. Now, like right here, you gotta remember it's coming out of the eye, so it's gonna leave this shadow. So just always try to keep in mind the bigger picture. Like, don't stick too close to the reference photo at times. Like I said, you need to make some artistic decisions. So this next step, like, this is another thing I kind of use, like the nose hook right there. I really like to do like a hook along the cheekbone. This just accentuate. I don't even know how to say that word, but highlights the cheekbone. And so you can kind of see where it should be. And you don't want to make this too thick. But just like with the nose thing, it just helps build the form of the face. And we could probably do this birthmark. I'm just gonna wait till the end when I do the tattoos, because it might be on top of some other shadow layers, and I'll show you how to work with that. And so I think that's good. So we'll lock it, do a little bit lighter. Since I have this swatch set already picked and I didn't really talk about coloring, so when you're choosing shadows, so we'll start with the skin color. When you're choosing shadows, not only do you want to make it darker, and I usually do a little bit more saturation, so as you move down it's lightness to darkness, and then right to left is saturation. So increase the saturation, make it a little darker. But you also want to you move the hue, which is the color, a little bit cooler for dark color. So we're going to move it, if you think of a wheel, moving it towards the blue is more like down, because it'll wrap around. So you want to move it towards cooler colors. So I would say like anywhere there. And then the opposite is true for highlights. You're going to move it towards a warmer color. So if I wanted highlight, let's just start with the base color again. You're going to move it a little bit towards the cooler colors and then just move it up. So that's just like a little color theory. There are a lot of videos on YouTube to help you out with that, and that's why I just like to have my swatch set already picked, because then I don't really have to worry about that, and it just speeds up the process. But yeah, that just helps it be a little more believable and not look so artificial. Okay, so we are going to the lighter shadow color. This is pretty much going to surround any of the darker shadows because it kind of gives that gradient effect, like it helps smooth the transitions a bit. And I forgot, you want this layer under the darkest shadow layer, because then you can just draw right around it and it stays nice. Oh, I am using the wrong color. I'm like, where did it go? Alright, so you can see this like hook, the pointed ends that I kind of use. Like I said, it's just little things like that. Just keep it consistent throughout the drawing and it'll help build your style. Doesn't need to be perfect, just have fun. Okay, so I finished the clothing for the most part. This is probably less support than the face, like what I was saying about the focal point of the image before. Like, unless you really have like a cool shirt you want to show off or something, like this isn't the main focus down here, so it's less important as the face. But I noticed that I want the blacks to be a little blacker, and instead of like going around and selecting all of them, you can just select one, select, and then go up to this menu, select, same fill color. You can do this with all these different options too, but we want fill color. It'll select them all for you, and you can just come down here and then change them all at the same time. And now you see it has just a little bit more contrast and pops a little better. And so we're almost done with the shading part. I just have the eye drips, the lips, and the earring, and this thing to do. So we'll get going. And make sure you save. I hadn't saved for a while. Just save as many times as you can. I'll be right back. I'm gonna get some more water and see you. Alright, so for shading the slime, there's a couple of important things. I didn't talk about it with this eye because it's kind of just a different shape than usual, but this is the usual shape I use. And so the light's coming in from the right side of my screen, so we want the highlights to fall on this side. That's kind of, I guess I should have mentioned it before, but that's why I drew the shadows on this side, because you kind of want to just keep following the light source. So we'll do a shadow on this wall, and then a shadow over here, and then also under the eyelid will be a shadow because it is coming out from inside of his eye. So you can start wherever you like. We'll just go up, and then you want to kind of curve out and follow it down. Fill it. And so a couple important things with this. You want to have smooth transitions on the edges, so you want this handle to kind of be following the line, just so it's not too sharp of a cut between. And this, you're building the form for the drip, so it's important to just think of it in 3D. You need to put, if you don't put the right shadows, it'll look flat. So here, since it's coming out of the eye, you have this little curve right here. And then another important part is down here, like same thing as up there though, but you just want to have a smooth transition. And right now we're building the form, like the 3D form of the drip. So like the bigger the shadows you create, the more volume it will appear to have. But I don't really need it right here, but it's probably good to add. If you are having trouble like getting smooth lines like this, you can come up to the pencil tool up here, right click it, and there's a smooth tool. So with this, you have a line selected, just trace it and it'll make it nice and smooth. Do it a couple times. And so that's really helpful. I should have probably mentioned that a while ago, but if you watched my other videos, you probably would have known that by now. I just like to repeat a lot of the steps just because I never know if there's a new viewer coming in. So and just zoom back, you can see if there's anything weird. Like, it doesn't really make sense why this shadow is so big, so let's just bring it up. And that looks a lot better. And so that was easy enough. We'll do the highlights next step. And that'll really make the drip, that kind of like brings the drip together because it's very reflective. lips. I actually don't have a color saved, so we'll just select the color, move it a little towards the cooler end. So you see right here, it overlapped. I should mention this also. As I'm drawing, we're on the layer under the darker shadows, so it doesn't really matter for those, but for like, we're drawing on top of these technically still. So whenever I finish one, I just hit send it to the back with Command Shift open bracket. And so it just makes it so you can like be a little less, like you don't need to be exact, you can just send it behind everything and then it covers anything that you didn't get perfect. We'll make this a little darker. Don't be scared to make the colors darker like this. Like, it might look weird up close, but when you're far away, it really helps to have that contrast in there. That's a big problem I see, is that people just don't put enough contrast, so their images look a little flat. So just test it out. You can always change the colors at the end, which I'll show you. And I really should make a keyboard shortcut for or like one of my hotkeys on my tablet to send it to back, which I'll probably do after this video, but I just always have my mouse or my keyboard right next to my drawing tablet. So my left hand kind of does that, my right hand does the drawing tablet. That's pretty good. Now we got the eye earring. So for grays, I like to like kind of make it a blue tint. You can do whatever, it doesn't. I just think it shines a little bit blue. And you just follow the same light source. Since it's an earring, it'll have a kind of a different angle, but you can just make whatever up. Alright, and so we're ready for the highlights. Just send that layer behind and you just do the same process. Highlights are kind of weird, just because if you think about most of your cartoon shows, well, that's where I'm inspired from, like, they don't really do highlights. Like, if you think of Timmy Turner, like, or any, like, SpongeBob or any of them, like, they have a shadow, but there's no highlights. So don't overdo the highlights if that's kind of the aesthetic you're going for. Just do the main ones. So cheekbones are good, the nose is good, and then like usually the highlight or the chin. The ear is more detailed, so it'll also have one. So the reason I deleted that is just because it didn't really leave me with any room for a highlight. So I think it's good to sacrifice the trueness of the shadow to give the highlight a spot to go. And yeah, that color looks nice. You don't want it too different from the normal skin tone, or else it might look shiny, and you don't necessarily want it to be shiny, just a little bit lighter to show the form of the face. I don't even think that should be there, but I'm just gonna leave it. You may have went a little overboard. Yeah, see, like, to me, when you have all these highlights, it just looks weird, so if it's not necessary, don't put it there. Like I said, chin, cheekbone, forehead and nose are like the main. This one, I think it just looks good there. maybe one on the neck. Alright, and now we got the clothes, the lips, and the drips. So let's just do the lips first. This one you gotta be careful because you don't want to make it look glossy, like lip gloss if you're drawing it. Well, I guess depending on the picture, you don't want them to look like they have lip gloss on. So we'll see how that looks. Maybe make it slightly lighter. And as you see, like all these like wavy, sharp points, it's all kind of building in to make the piece coherent. Like you don't want to have, I mean you can if it's your style, but like if I have round shapes versus sharp shapes all mixed into the same picture, it'll just create some confusion for the viewer. You want to make their brain have an easy job processing what you drew. Looks good. I'll use white for the earring, and actually this is a full blown out white, so same thing with the clothing, like this is not the main focal point, so just go crazy with it. It looks shiny regardless. This one I'll just use the brush since it's so small. It's metal, so there's a lot of reflection happening. So with the drip I put highlights down here on the drips over this arch, this curve here and up here. I use the same ones on all of them. Yeah. Or the same highlights usually on every single drip. That's just the thing, is just keep it easy on yourself. Just who cares if you keep it the same? Like people might, I don't know, people always get upset over random things, but if it makes your job easier and it helps build your style, like, because you want a similarity between all your pictures if you're trying to grow your Instagram page. And so you could draw the same exact thing over and over and over, and I guarantee your page would slowly grow. It's all about time. One thing you can do, so since I already have these shapes created, I can just duplicate it by holding Alt or Option, depending what system you use, and click and drag. You can tell, like when you press Alt or Option, whatever, you see the plus sign next to your selection tool, so click and drag and it'll copy it. This side is kind of weird with just the angle it's at, so I'm just guessing. And then you can use the brush tool and add a couple dots coming off the edges of these. It's going to be reflecting a lot of light, so don't overdo it, just subtle. And no one even views it at that size, but like I said, if you're getting it printed, these little details really do matter. So now we have the clothes, and then I was thinking about adding highlights to the hair, but it looks fine, just solid black. So like, you don't need to waste your time. Well, not waste it, but just don't put too much effort into it, because I did just a solid black fill and you get the same idea of the hair. Having these shadows helps to build the form and also these open spaces between it. So yeah, just drawing shouldn't be painful, so just make it enjoyable to you. If that means taking some shortcuts, and take some shortcuts. Now with the highlights on the shirts, just with these gray colors I used, I've noticed it doesn't even matter where you put them. I mean, obviously it kind of does, but like there's enough going on in the shirt that it'll look good kind of regardless where you put them. I guess I shouldn't say that because you're still following the same light source, but it's just you've already built the shape with the shadows, so this is kind of just to give it a little more interest. And so that looks good. I'm trying to think what else it needs to be. I think I'd like this to be a little bit darker back here. So I'm just going to fill it with black. So that's pretty good. The next step is the next step is the background and rim lighting. So rim lighting is just like adding a little bit a light layer on the edges of the drawing for light that kind of bleeds around the object. So let's just start with the background. I keep it really simple. We'll just make a square, make this the very bottom layer. Make a square, and we'll use like a dark blue gray, maybe like a little less blue, and then on top of that we'll draw a circle, hit the L key, and to make the rectangle you hit M. So circle is L. Fill it with the gradient, and then you open this gradient menu. If you don't have this, just go to Window, Gradient, and we'll make it a radial gradient with the inner circle being this green and the outer circle being this background color, and make that go to 0. So we just want it to blend in, and so for this I like to make it big. This is just like adds a cool glow effect I like. It's just like, I always think of the drips as like some toxic goo, and like it just looks cool. So after that, I have been adding these like flames. I don't know what you call them. So you'll just make a shape, and this also just ties into the shading style I do, and then you just lower the opacity down, let's say around there is fine, and you'll build them up all around it. The importance of this step, so I always say focal point, like I keep mentioning that the interest or like where the eye is drawn to, you want it to be the drawing. So you don't want these to like overpower anything. It's really just to help draw more attention to the face. So honestly, just that is probably good enough. And so I think if they're a little too bright, so we go select all, since their fill color is the same as the eyes, we don't want that, so we'll do opacity, same opacity. And we'll just lower it just a bit more. And then you see that this is a weird one because of all these, it's like right at the edge of these black lines. So it builds this sort of tension there that you don't want. have the black lines end inside of it. See, it's just much, your eye is just not drawn to that spot if it's not as contrasty as that. And just move them around, make them look how you want them to be. I just changed that one because I don't know if I wanted them to go off the page. I'm sure it'll look fine. And that's good for that. So let's do, there's one more gradient we'll add to the top, but let's just do the rim lighting first, because then it's a, if you do it too soon, then you'll be, it just creates complications. So we'll do this on the darkest shadow layer, so the one just directly under the line art. And so we're gonna use this green color, but at about 80% opacity, just to blend it with whatever shape it's on. And we just trace along the edges of the drawing. Don't worry about like what shapes you're going over. And reduce it to 80% opacity. And you don't want it too thick because it's just light, like wrapping around, like it's not like, yeah, you just don't want it too thick. It just kind of provides an extra layer of interest. And so, like, even just doing this will help build your style. Like, people will see the green glow and they like recognize it as like a frawgsy style. So just do little things and do it in all of your drawings, and slowly people will just associate it with you. I have no clue what this black shape is. Oh, okay. So as you're working around, if you find anything, like, this is your chance to fix it. Just like that. Or like even that little gray spot right here that I missed. And I guess I don't know why I'm still talking so quietly. I bet my neighbors are awake by now, but so I'm sorry if it was hard to hear during this video. Next time I'll plan it a little better. And that thing I was talking about, the tension with the hair, it comes to play with all the shapes. Like, you don't want this little piece of color here. So I think the best option is to make the highlight smaller, like, because that shadow is pretty important. Yeah, see, that just doesn't look good to me, so I don't even think it's that important to have that one there. It's kind of covered by the hoodie anyway, so it wouldn't really make sense for light to hit it. And I put this on the clothing, like anywhere I think is sticking out. So like, same thing with the highlights. It doesn't matter too much. And you'll see that it's got this cool electric glow. That's what we're aiming for. Just some just make it cool. If you like looking at it, most likely other people will like looking at it. Yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. So there's one last touch. So what I just did, we just Command X, you're gonna cut this, hit backspace to put it back, and on the very top layer, hit Command F, which is paste in place, and we'll go to the gradient. We'll drop this down to about 30%, and now it kind of just blends this glow effect in front of him also, and it kind of like adjusts the colors a bit, just makes it look more glowy and cool. So yeah, we'll save it. I'll probably notice something later that I wanted to add to the. Oh, his birthmark. I knew it. His tattoo. So let's add that. We'll do that on the top shadow layer. So that that was almost bad. So the only thing that reminded me was because I have a picture of it open on my desktop also, so I just glanced at it and realized I forgot. So I like to have the photo open separate so it's still true to color and you can catch anything like that. Alright, so that's good, and we'll add the tattoo. I'm gonna do this. I guess we could just draw the lines. So we don't want that color, we'll make it like a gray neutral gradient or transparency. You want to put multiply. It's probably better just to draw the shape instead of doing a stroke. So just use the pencil tool. Now for tattoo, because a lot of times they look really distorted. Alright, and so now I